I'm Heidi Miller with Bradley Morris RecruitMilitary, and throughout this session we're going to go over how to really construct your resume and outline key skills and attributes that are important to the employer. So let's start with the top and let's start with an example. We'll go line by line just to make sure everyone is clear on how to format and really construct your resume. So first off, always start with your name. I would recommend outlining your name. Make it very clear. You want to keep your name very short and concise, and you don't want anything after your name. So you could do first, middle, and last name, or just first and last name. Do not include rank or PMP or MBA, any of the above after your name. Just keep everything very generic. The reason you do not want to include anything after your name or before is because it will take away from your actual name line and it will just look a little bit confusing. Plus, you never want to put anything that can be redundant on a resume. Each space on your resume is precious. So further on in your resume, you will have your PMP certification or your MBA, Master's in Business Administration degree. So we don't want to be redundant, just basic name. Next, following your name, I would recommend including your full physical address. The reason you want to include your full physical address is because a lot of employers use your address as a tracking mechanism in their system. Additionally, they'll use your address to book plane tickets and get you out on site, or to even see where you're currently at. After the full physical address, here's where we're going to put in your phone number. For your phone number, I would recommend including a phone number that only you will answer. You do not want to include a home phone number where maybe a child will answer the phone whenever an interviewer is calling. So you want to be the only one answering the phone, so only include your actual cell phone number. Following your cell phone number, I'd recommend including just one email address. You do not want to create confusion. You want to keep everything very simple. This one email address should not be a .mil or a .edu. None of the above. You want to keep your email very civilianized, very, very professional, and you don't want it to be affiliated with a past degree or past employer. Following your email, here's order of precedence-wise where you can include your LinkedIn address. Only include your LinkedIn address if you are comfortable with your actual LinkedIn account. If your LinkedIn account is not established yet, do not include your LinkedIn address. But once that account is established, then go ahead and put your link onto your resume. Also, you can refine your link. You can go into the LinkedIn settings and condense your name line so you don't have quite a few numbers afterwards. Following your basic name and contact information, here's where the resume can go a few different directions. What you want to do is you want to upfront the meat and potatoes. You want to upfront what the employer will actually care about. So if a summary will really incorporate and help you outline your skills, start with a summary. If your education will set you apart, or even certifications, then you can start with your education or certifications, or put those immediately following your summary. Or if your professional experience is really the highlight of your career, then go ahead and just start straight off with a professional experience section. So when formulating your resume, I would recommend never starting off with an objective. Objectives are perfect for cover pages. However, an objective is stating more what you're looking for opposed to who you are and what you can actually bring to the table, or who you are as a professional and what you can actually bring to the table. So objective statements can restrict you, and honestly, they don't have anything to do with your background, so I would just recommend removing that objective statement completely. So for the summary, as I mentioned before, yes or no. Honestly, if the summary will set you apart and you can really focus on key skills that the employer cares about, start with the summary. But instead of just titling your summary professional summary, instead use that title to really set you apart. So in this case, John Smith, for example, is applying for more of an engineering position, and he has an engineering background. So multidisciplinary engineering leader is perfect for him. Now for the verbiage of the summary. We want to include key highlights that really set him apart. If this position is looking for a technical supervisor, well, he wants to outline his team building and managerial experience, in addition to, of course, his engineering experience. You can also include key skills following the summary if the key skills are hard skills. Never include project management, leadership, anything that broad. Instead, you want to include key skills that will really set you apart. Hydraulic pneumatic components, for example, industrial safety, multimeters. That's the type of information that you want to include if you do decide to do a key skills section immediately following the summary paragraph. Now we'll move down to the education section. So education, or education and certifications, as you can couple it, are only the educational background that will set you apart. Do not put your high school diploma. Instead, put degrees or certifications that are applicable to the position. If you don't have any, that is perfectly fine. Just leave the education section out and do a training and certification section at the bottom of your resume. Certifications that I would recommend bringing to the top of your resume and including in this education and certification section are Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, PMP certification, OSHA, anything that is very important to the job. If you're more technical, CISSP, Security Plus, any of the above would work. I would recommend bringing, again, that to the front because you want the employer to be able to see your skill sets that pertain to the position or certifications that might be necessary for the role. Also include any degrees that are applicable. If you got a, let's just say, Bachelor's of Science in History back in 1985, you can keep that at the bottom of your resume. But if you received a degree that is applicable to the field and it is more current, feel free to keep it in this education section immediately following your summary section. Now we'll get down to the fun part, the professional experience section. So the professional experience section really is the core meat and potatoes of your resume. It's what sets you apart, it's what you've done and what you can bring to the table. So what I like to do for the professional experience section is to start off with a day in the life paragraph. And up front, the quantifiable information that is important or most applicable. So if a position is looking for someone that is more, well in this case, more in line with synchronizing multifaceted projects, well, you want to start with coordinating a cross-functional team of quality management, operations, management, and plans. So something like that would be perfect. If, again, that's the project role that you're looking for. If you're looking to apply for more of a leadership role, start off with your leadership experience. Supervised and cross-trained 25 multifunctional technicians, for example. That's how you can start off. If you're in line with more of just a straight-on technical field service technician role, start off with your technical aptitude. Oversaw and performed all preventative and corrective maintenance on blank, blank, blank systems. So whatever information is most important to the employer that reflects your day in the life in that role, upfront it. So with this day in the life paragraph, include amount of people led, dollar amounts of equipment that you're in charge of, and anything that you really did on a daily basis. Then we'll use the subordinate bullets to quantify specialized projects, accomplishments, rankings, any of the above. So day in the life paragraph followed by subordinate quantifiable bullets. Okay, as we chronologically walk through the resume, I would recommend making sure all the dates align. If you have time gaps, let's just say you started a job December 2017, but you ended your previous job January 2017, just use years opposed to months and years on your resume to fill that gap. If you have more than a couple-year gap, there's a few different options that you can do. You can use a functional style resume, which we highly advise against, or what you can do is you can just keep the gap in there or put a volunteer project that you worked on to fill that gap. So let's just say that you took 5 years off of employment from 2002 to 2007, and during that time you volunteered quite a bit. Use that volunteer experience as your main job, as your main role. So that's how I would recommend doing it. And again, try to stay away from using a functional style resume if at all possible. The reverse chronological shows chronologically your advancement, what you've done, and it also aligns the dates so that the employer can see flat out, here's your background and here's what you can bring to the table. Okay, now going down a little bit further, at the end of your resume, here's where you can include a training and certification section. If, again, you don't have an educational background, that would really be an asset to the organization. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get into a few best practices and common pitfalls with the actual resume writing. So for best practices, I would recommend setting up your resume so that it is aesthetically pleasing. So for font, you want to keep the font very generic. You want to do Arial, Times New Roman, something that's very legible, very basic. Also, you never want to go below size 10 font. Try to keep your font between 10 and 12. Next, for the borders, never go below 0.5-inch borders on either side. Again, we're trying to keep this aesthetically pleasing and very easy to read. If an interviewer or a hiring manager is looking at your resume and it's not clean and aesthetically pleasing, the odds of them going through all of your information are very, very slim. Next, I would recommend trying to incorporate key verbiage into your resume. If you're applying for, let's just say, more of a project management role, include project management type verbiage. So you can bring about project scope, specifications, on time, compliance. That's the type of information they want to know. Or maybe just different labor tracking, utilization, planning, coordination that went into running the project. Include all of that key information. Also, if you want to focus on more Lean Six Sigma or process improvement, use verbiage like incorporated lean principles to streamline blank process. And then try to use as much quantifiable information while doing so as well. If you can use percentages or dollar amounts, you'll be golden. Also, when going through your resume, use modern verbiage. So for example, for any dollar amount 1,000 and above, it's just $, dollar amount. So dollar signs just say 10, for example, capital K with no space between the 0 and the K. Same thing for million, billion, etc. So $10, capital M, no space between the 0 and the M. Also, try to keep everything very profit-driven, if that's possible, throughout your resume. Saving money is universal in the military as it is in the civilian sector. So anytime that you can outline that you've saved an organization so much money, go for it. That verbiage will speak and it will make a difference. Now for a few common pitfalls. I would recommend staying away from using first or third person. Quotations, exclamation points, stay away from all that. You want to keep your verbiage very generic. You always want to start off a sentence with a strong action verb, get into the quantifiable information, and then get into the result. You do not want to waste time with different conjunctive adverbs or even putting I or me or as is or anything like that. Just very, very basic. Start with that strong action verb, get into the quantifiable information, and then the result. You don't have much space with your resume. Keep it very condensed. This is not an English paper. This is honestly more like a law paper if you have that experience. So strong action verb, quantifiable information, result. Okay, next, whenever you're writing your resume, try to keep it no less than 1 page and no more than 2 pages. If you have 30 years of experience, you know what, that is just fine. But still keep your resume to 2 pages. Focus most on, of course, the roles that are applicable to the position that you're applying for, and then on the last 5 to 10 years, opposed to a role that you did 25 years ago. But with this, I would recommend including your entire experience on your resume. Just keep your experience that is not as relevant very, very condensed. Okay. Also, I would recommend trying to diversify your verbiage and your job descriptions. Okay, so for diversifying your verbiage, what I would recommend doing is not using the same action verbs to start. So to use coordinated at one point, use synchronized at the next. Or led, instead of using led redundantly. Instead, what I would recommend doing is managed, supervised, any of the above. Just diversify your verbiage so that you are using unique verbiage. Also, what I'd recommend doing is not copying and pasting one role. So let's just say that you did the same role pretty much twice throughout your career. Don't copy and paste it. Try to diversify as much as possible. Like diversifying the verbiage, you also want to diversify your experience as much as possible. Okay, and then finally, for your job descriptions, stay away from words like responsible or filler words that will get in the way. Instead, try to focus on exactly what you did and what can set you apart. When constructing a resume, one other important thing to keep in mind is use civilian verbiage throughout. No one in the civilian sector will know, for example, what an S4 is, or even a crew chief. Instead, try to be as civilianized as possible. So you can use examples like logistics manager. That would be perfect. Or maintenance manager for crew chief. The only roles that I would recommend keeping consistent are work center supervisor, platoon leader, executive officer, company commander. And the reason for that is those roles are actually much more important in the military than they would be in the civilian sector. So if you civilianize those duty titles, you're going to lose sight of what you've actually done. So I would recommend trying to keep those duty titles stable, but if the duty title does not correlate to the civilian sector, that's the time to come up with a civilian transition instead for that. But at this point, we've been through most of what to do and what not to do with the resumes. If you do have further questions, please refer to a few of our training modules that we have posted on the website. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and best of luck.